Guys, we have another co-host in the house tonight. A name you may not recognize, but I can tell you this. You will recognize him from Andy Glaze's videos. Tonight, I have Chad with two Ds, as Andy called him, but most recently, the man that was laying on the side of the trail for dead in Cocodona 250 this year, Chad Cosse. How you doing, bud?
Good, man. Glad to finally get on with the one and only.
Oh man, stop. I actually, before you're too kind, I'm starting with a bone to pick with you. So it's back July 2023, and Brad's a new ultra marathoner. I'd just wobbled through my first 50K and said, "Hey, I'm going to try a 60K." Here I am. I sign up for the 60K. It's 4 9-mile loops. It's got more vert than I've could ever possibly conceive. And I'm like, this is good. I'm doing grindstone in September. Well, here I am and just enjoying the old third lap when a man comes creeping from behind and I realize I am about to get lapped. So my question, Chad, why'd you do that to me, bud?
Man, that day was brutal too because it was raining.
Did you beat the rain?
Enough, I didn't. I did not beat the rain. I wish I beat the rain. I did not beat the rain. But that was a good race. I actually just signed up for it again this year.
I know. I saw that you're going back, which I feel because I've done a really good job of not entering races that you've entered because of the post traumatic stress that 60K put on me. But now I'm like, maybe I just sign up just to see if I could get through without you laughing.
Let's run it back.
Because for some context for the listeners, you went 6:48 in that race. And I went 9:39. So you beat me by over 3 hours. And I finished third to last. And I think you finished third.
Yeah, no, that was good. That was a fun race. Great course. Like I'd never been up there.
It really was. If you're in the Northeast, what was it? It was the Red Wing 60K.
Yeah,
small race. I think there was 22 people that started last year.
Yeah.
And they had a separate race. They had a separate race for, I think they called it 15K for like the one loop. And it had I want to say it had like maybe 1,800 or 2,000 feet of loop.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it was. And you guys looked like you battled up in the front. It looked pretty competitive up in the front.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was a little weird because the race started like they sent out a fake start time. So I think one guy who came late, he got second, so I didn't even really see him. Like I didn't really know where I was,
right?
But it's no big deal. But I was like, oh yeah, that's a little. I never had that happen before.
That dude lapped me too. Because you know when somebody's passing you and when somebody's lapping you. When somebody's passing you, they come up. They're like, "Hey man, how are you?" And I actually, maybe in the promotion of this, I'll go back and find that video because I'm sitting there with my GoPro, like here. I'm like, "What the fuck? Who's this?"
Yeah, I remember seeing that. I was like, "Oh man, that was good. It's a good shot."
So, I want to talk. I was stalking you on Ultra Sign Up as I always do. Like I said, that's how I make sure I avoid whatever races that you're in. You've been doing this for a little bit now. Was it November 2020 was your first like big race? It was a 24-hour race, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you broke 100-mile in that race.
Yeah.
What was the distances before? Was that your first time going over 100? Because I know there's obviously races that are not on Ultra Sign Up. Was that the first time going 100?
Yeah, that was marathon was kind of like my longest distance before then. I was training for an Ironman. It was COVID. The Ironman got canceled, and I was like really upset. I was like, oh man, like I trained for like a year for this Ironman. I was swimming. I was doing all this. And my buddies randomly was like, do you want to go to South Carolina, do this ultra? I was like, I knew about ultras. Like I knew about them, but I wasn't really that interested in doing it. But then I saw like 24-hour race. You know, I didn't feel like I'd really DNF. Like I was worried about like DNFing. I didn't want to just get out there and like DNF. I was like, 24 hours? Like, I guess whatever distance I go, I could tell myself I didn't really like DNF it. So I kind of took the edge off and I was like, yeah, I mean, I have this fitness. So I like pivoted. I think I had a couple months. They gave us a couple months notice when they canceled the race, the Ironman. So yeah, I just started training like kind of willy-nilly and just hopped down there.
Was 100 like in the cards going in? Was that like, did you have a goal of that? Or was just like, let's just see what we could do?
I did have a goal of 100. and just 'cause it sounded like a nice number, like, oh, 100
Yeah.
miles. Like, yeah, that's. I
Do
googled
you
like what's a good distance for 24 hours. They're like 100 miles. Like, oh yeah,
100
let's
miles?
see.
Do you like those timed races as opposed to like I think this was a loop one too because I think I
Hmm.
talked to so many people that like timed or loop races there's a love-hate relationship and like I love the backyard ultra style like I
Yeah.
like kind of loop courses being from the island we don't really have big courses so everything I do is a freaking loop was that like what's it like doing because I'm looking like things to do in the future do you recommend like those 12 24 hour races.
I definitely recommend. I definitely recommend it for a first ultra for I think like most people, especially if you're not going to have a lot of crew, just because it's
Okay.
very because that race was a 2 mile loop, maybe even a little under a 2 mile loop.
Oh wow.
And yeah, you just have like the start finish has all your stuff. You didn't need to like carry a pack. I didn't even like own a pack at the time. I didn't even really know about like bottles or like gels. So it was great for that reason. Now I don't really necessarily like them. I mean, I've done, and I think you've done Tesla Hertz,
Hmm.
which is nice because it's a longer loop, like 10 mile loop.
Yeah.
So it kind of breaks it up a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, I love the loops. I love the timed races. I haven't done a time race in a couple years, but I did love it. I've done like I think 3 or 4 like 24-hour loop races, and yeah, I think it's just a great place to just try out a ultra for sure.
I would agree with you. Like I said, I always say, like the backyard is a great place to start for
Oh yeah,
like if you really want to see what you're doing. It's just it's good vibes. It's like I'm doing javelina and everyone's like, oh man, those loops. I'm like, it's 20 mile loops.
yeah. No,
It's gonna be
Javelina is
different.
great.
It's gonna be different times of the day. I'll be fine. So I think I'm pacing a lot and doing some things this summer, but I really want to maybe look for one of those in the fall, something to do like just to see it. Cause I look at what's that one that's in February that Aravipa the jackpot ultras where it's like a
Yeah, jackpot.
1.2 mile like
Hmm.
that intrigues me. I know some like my buddies are like, no shot, dude. I'm
Yeah,
like, even my wife is like, that sounds it's road, it's on a path, it's
yeah.
1.4 miles. I'm like, I don't know. That just seems like my jam. My only problem would be like, and I think Sally McRae mentioned this, like you have to be careful because you come through the start finish so much. You don't want to get too comfortable and like because
Mm.
2 3 minutes every single lap will add up to a lot of time. You kind of got to blow through start finish sometimes, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, but yeah, jackpot. I think that's the national championship for the 100 mile
Yeah.
every year. So
I don't need to think about that. There's too many. There's way too many fast people. I got some times. So you do the 24-hour race, and then like 6 months later, you go up to 200.
yeah, so I did the 24-hour. Then a few months later, I did another 24-hour
Okay.
down in South Carolina, and then I did that 200 miler down there, which I think is happening next week. My first 200. That was a tough race.
I
That
feel like there's so many popular, quote unquote, popular 200s, which we're going to talk about because you've pretty much checked them all or going to check them all. How did you find like like was it's called a Hell Hole 100 or something like that? How did you
yeah,
find like a
exactly.
little 200 like that?
Yeah, I mean, I liked like South Carolina was where I did a lot of the ultras. Like the
Okay.
first one I did was down there, the second one I did was down there, and I kind of just like that area. So I was like looking for some just races in that part of the country, and so this was one of them. But yeah, super small field. Like it was only me in the 200 miler to like I think a couple weeks before the race. Then like there ended up being just 3 people in that distance.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of just like solo, alone miles. But I mean, it was a good challenge. I mean, I came into it. I like wasn't prepared for the distance or like the gear, the footwear, just all
But
that stuff. I mean,
you still sub 80 hours though. You still went quick.
yeah. I mean, it was flat. I mean, it was kind of swampy, like very
Okay.
like a lot of just it was in like on some horse trails, just real swampy. But yeah, I mean, I just glad to get it done. It kind of just set the bar like, hey, I can cover the distance.
Yeah.
And there was something about the multiple days, just being out there for like over 48 hours was just that like unlocked something that just stuck with me, and I've kind of stuck with the 200s ever
So,
since.
so 48 hours is a big deal.
Yeah, I like just being I like that everyone was out there for that long. Like,
Right.
because in hundreds, some people take a while, but maybe people in the front, they're like, oh yeah, the people in the front, they're like, whatever, 20 hours, under 20 hours. But I like that even like the fast people are out there for 50, 60 hours. There's something
Right.
about that. I just kind of like that everyone's going through it.
Is training for a 200 like double as hard as training for a 100?
I don't think it's double as hard to train for it. I mean, I feel like my mileage is pretty similar. I mean, depending on the terrain, maybe you have to be a little more
Strategic.
specific, and yeah,
Yeah.
maybe you just have to keep your mileage up just more generally. But I don't think it's any harder to train.
Okay.
I feel like obviously the races is more difficult, but I mean, you can only do so much mileage per week that
Exactly. Yeah. There,
it kind of caps itself.
especially like when we have jobs and I have children. It's because
Exactly.
I think about like making that jump, not yet. And I'll give you my opinion on 200s later, but I, the biggest thing the hardest thing for me training for canyons was the time. Like I have
Yeah.
no problem. Coach could give me as many miles. Like I think I peaked at like 80, 85 miles, which was just where I happened to go from where I started and building my base slowly. Early on, coach was like, I don't care about like hitting 100-mile weeks. I care about growing your volume safely and efficiently, which we did. And I felt really, really ready for that. And I think it ended up being somewhere around like 14 to 16 hours per week, depending on the vert.
Yeah.
And, I, at the end of it, it was more that 14 to 16 hours. It was more the back to back long weekends. And then I'm like thinking about hundreds and I'm like, how much more time is it going to require for me to, get out there? And I mean, you, you do like, I don't know if it's wacky, but I mean, you're in Manhattan, right? You're living in
Yeah.
Manhattan now, pretty
Yep.
much one of the flattest non-trailed places in the entire United States of America. But I saw like as of late, you've been, getting upstate a little bit more. And that
Yeah.
one time you just like caught the Amtrak into the middle of Connecticut and
Um,
just ran home in the middle of the night.
yeah, you got to get creative. Like, yeah, I definitely do some non-standard like things, like taking the train at like midnight and then getting out way up on like the long path
Yeah.
trail and then just running back to the city, like doing stuff like that. Just because, like you said, you're in New York, you got to kind of figure it out. You got to make it work. You got to train for the race, but
Are
can only do
you,
so many loops of Manhattan.
are you the one being creative or you have a coach? You bring a coach on for these big events?
Yeah, I have a coach,
Yeah.
and normally like we talk a lot, and there's like the big runs on the weekends,
Okay.
like leading up to a race to be maybe like a 6 hour, 7 hour. And I can kind of take this. Sometimes he says to get on the trails if I can. And
Yeah.
that's kind of when I'll do something like that. Like there's lots of
Okay.
ways to get on the trails, but I kind of like to maybe put a little wrinkle in it, like do it like overnight run, or like I did the Connecticut thing. And it just kind of spices it up, just kind of keep it interesting.
Yeah, I love it. When you
Switch
did
it up
that, I
from the
was like,
side.
that's awesome. Like,
It was
I mean,
great.
because I've thought about so many times where I'm at, like taking the train out to Montauk and then like running from Montauk back to my house, which would be
Yeah.
like about 80 miles. And
That's good.
now I'm like, all right, maybe I could touch that. Now that I have the confidence of the 100-miler, I'm not so much thinking about like races and future things I want to do. I'm more like, let's go out and find FKTs to just mess around with or try like fast pack adventures and things like that. And like, that's kind of I'm just really excited to use like the fitness I have
Oh yeah.
moving forward and like doing cool things like that. Because how many people could say like, yeah, I just took the train till 3:00 in the morning and then ran back to Manhattan. No big deal.
Yeah, just put it in a Google Maps home and just get going.
Yeah, is that all you do? You just pretty much walk home and just follow the route home?
Yeah, that's what I did. Yeah, got out at the Fairfield stop and just put in my home address. They say turn left on Main Street. They have the GPS in my headphones and just get going.
Love it. So you do that in June, and then the next year you went into the more popular, well-known
Yeah.
200s, and you knocked out Tahoe in 81
Yeah.
hours. Pretty good.
Yeah, I was
What's
pleased with that. Yeah.
as a school teacher, like Tahoe is like right there out of the ones, maybe that and Bigfoot that I could do.
Yeah.
So what was the mindset going from that hellhole 100 that was really 212 and a
Yeah.
flat small race, and then all right, I'm going to go up to a little bit bigger race, definitely more people in that race, a bigger population, things like that. And also too a little bit more unknown, not as local, or like you said, you'd been racing down south a bunch.
Yeah.
Why'd you choose Tahoe first?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I signed up because it was a lottery. And so I was just like, oh, like I was trying to avoid races with elevation gain pretty, pretty like deliberately avoiding races with a lot of climbing. But then I kept seeing this like Tahoe on like Instagram or whatever, and they kept on blasting the lottery that opened like end of the year. So it was like right after Tesla 100 miler, and I just said, I'll put in for the lottery, and if I get it, like, all right, well, we got a fun road ahead. And so yeah, I mean, I just put in, I got it, and that was really all it was. I mean, it was the first one, and I think it was the one that the lottery opened soonest.
Okay.
I think some of the other lotteries, like for Moab and for Bigfoot, opened either a little later or had like already passed.
Right.
So it kind of worked out with the timing, and yeah, just turned it up to another level with the climbing stuff, and said it's now or never. Because yeah, you can start to run out of 200 milers that are flat after a while. I can only run so many loops. So.
Did it being out and back suck?
See, that a lot of people didn't like it,
Okay.
but I didn't mind it because, like you said, a lot of the loop races that I started doing,
All right.
I was fine like seeing the same stuff.
Okay.
And it was just like one big out and back, 100 miles out and back.
Right.
I didn't really mind it. I mean, it was obviously you pass some stuff. You're like, dang, I got to come all the way back and do this again. But you got to get over it. It's kind of new coming the other way. Some parts are in the day, some parts are in the night.
Was it out and back like you saw people coming back, or was it like a different
Yeah.
trail on the way? Yeah. So
No, you saw people coming back. Yeah.
see, I kind of like out and backs like that. I like being able to see people and but I mean, I don't know if it's like more that I wish Tahoe was a full loop of the lake,
Oh,
or
yeah.
just the fact that it's really just 2-1. I don't know. I don't know if I'm just like maybe just trying to find reasons that I don't want to do it so that I don't just jump in and do it. But for me, that's really the only. I think Lake Tahoe is beautiful. I love that part of the country, and I'm totally down with that. And like I said, being a teacher, that's the one I could probably pull off without really having to beg and plead my boss. But I just, man, I feel like the out and back
Yeah,
is
it's
just
tough.
deterring me a little
Yeah.
bit.
I probably won't do it again unless and I don't know if we'll ever bring the full loop back,
Right.
but I mean, they kind of sprung it on us because it was canceled for the 2 years before that for COVID and then for the fires.
Mm-hmm.
So they just brought it back and they're like, oh, and it's an out and back. So, but it was still
Yeah.
great. I mean, beautiful location.
And I
Super
heard
tough,
that Candace runs great races.
oh, great races. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great races. Yeah.
So that was 22, and then 23 was the big year with multiple
Yeah.
200s.
Yeah.
So that was your first go at Cocodona,
Yeah.
or Coke Donuts, and all the other names that's
Yeah.
becoming, which is not a destination trail race. That's Aravaipa, and 105 hours.
Yeah. That one, I mean, absolutely brutal. Like, and
I've heard so much about that first 50K or whatever it was, and last year, not this year, but like in the year you did it last year in 2023, I heard it was just so hot and so exposed, that first 50, and not a lot of people knew exactly like where there was going to be water and things like that, and I heard it just got sketchy quick.
Yeah, that's what I heard. 21 was like you were in danger. A lot of people just like the first 50 they're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, super tough race. First 50K definitely caught me off guard. I mean, I was prepared. I mean, I knew it was coming, and it still just kind of smacked me in the face. So that was tough. But you get through it, and it's a good thing about 200s. You have a lot of time to kind of get right, or at least get to a better spot than you were like even 24 hours ago. So there's a lot of that, a lot of trying to feel better than I was.
People say that like 100 miler is like a whole lifetime in a day, or like every
Oh
human emotion. I can't even imagine. Like, yeah, like you can essentially be sick on day one, and like 4 days later, that cold is probably going to be gone.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. You could
And
have little like aches and pains, and yeah, they vanish.
from other buddies and people I've talked to that have done it, they kind of like Cocodona in the fact that it really is a tour of Arizona. Like it's not all remote. You know, you go through some towns, you hit different parts of Arizona. There's literally different climates and everything from, the trees, it's desert, then you're at the top of Eldon and it's like, is that as cool as it sounds?
Yeah, it definitely is a cool experience. Like you
Right.
said, you're kind of popping into towns. I wouldn't say it's as scenic as like the destination trail races.
Okay.
It's definitely like a lot more road, which I'm fine with. I love running on the road. Some people don't. It's a lot, and it's just a lot of like sh- empty field running, like in the
Okay.
woods, like which I don't really mind that. I mean, but like when you think of like a Tahoe or even like a Moab or even Bigfoot, it doesn't really have that same to me for the whole race. That kind of scenic element.
Yeah.
Portions of it are just absolutely beautiful, but I would say that they focus more on, like you said, hitting the towns and like
Hmm.
getting into these towns. But great, I mean, amazing race. Like the volunteers and the aid stations, 10 out of 10,
Yeah.
which makes like solo runners like myself like the race wouldn't be possible without those like volunteers and that setup.
I'll get to that because that was going to be a question of mine. I'll get to that now. Like, is that by choice or do you just not have a lot of people in your life that are running ultras?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, I'm 29. You're 29. You live in New York. Like, I don't who's going out to Tahoe for a week, like to crew. I mean, I'm sure there's some people if I really wanted to put it in like the Facebook chat, like, hey, is anyone local area? There's a lot of people who like opt in and volunteer, but I would want someone who like I wouldn't feel awkward around. Like I for like
Yeah.
meeting them for the first time, like I'm counting on them, like so yeah, I mean, and it's been fine. I mean, there's definitely been races where yeah, the time could definitely be better with a
Yeah. So I
crew
was
and
going to
like
ask you that. Do you think you would
pacers.
go quicker if you had pacers and crew? Because I've talked to Glaze about that, and he's like, I get like more stressed out when I have a pacer, like that. I don't want one around, and people have like forced themselves on, been like, Andy, I'm showing up, and he's been like, oh, okay, but like, is it something that, yeah, like you said, I like to train alone, and there's a lot of awesome group runs here, and I
Yeah,
think I just kind of like when I feel good, I like to go. And when I don't feel good, I don't want to go.
yeah,
And I like almost didn't want, at first when I did canyons, I was like, I didn't want to have a pacer. And I'm talking to my wife and she's like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, especially like my buddy paced me. So there was no awkwardness. Like we ran together all the time. And in hindsight now, I know that I probably wouldn't have finished. I mean,
yeah,
my first 100, like now that I've got that under my belt, I have a little more confidence. I've learned a few things. Maybe I could do one. I'm going to Javelina by myself. But that first one, I definitely think, I don't know if he made me go faster, but he definitely like made me believe that like the finish line was possible. And he definitely thought for me when my brain was like foggy and he was reminding me to eat and reminding me cutoffs and things like that. And I'm always just intrigued by not only like the fact that people run these long ones solo, but how many people actually run them solo.
yeah. It not a lot. Maybe I would say like maybe 10%. Like it's not a lot.
Really?
Definitely, I would do much. I definitely would be faster with a pacer, especially. I mean, in this last Cocodona, I mean, like
Oh, we'll
I
get
was,
into
yeah.
it.
You just get the fatigue is just so intense
Right.
that it helps to have someone to just follow, just to navigate closely
Mhm.
behind. Or if you like fall asleep, they can like wake you up before you are asleep for 9 hours, 10 miles from the finish line.
How, I mean, you link up with people, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
last year you were in Glaze's videos as well. which was
Yeah.
funny how it came back to
Yeah.
fruition this year. Did you know who he was before Cocodona last year from
Oh
Instagram
yeah.
and things like that?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Yep. Yep. 100%. Yep.
And what's it like when you just like bump into somebody on the trail, like stars align and you pace together? Like, I know you guys were together for the night. Was
Yeah.
there, do you guys talk like, hey, I know we're going to kind of do our own thing, but I'm solo, you're solo. Let's get a couple miles? Or is it just kind of like unspoken that we'll kind of hang out and pace each other through the night or get through the night together? And then when we get to an aid station or whatever, or if somebody needs to go, we need to go.
Yeah. Oftentimes, like when you're leaving an aid station, you can tell who's got crew and who doesn't. So that's what happened with me and Annie. Like we were both leaving. It was night. He's like, "Hey, you want to link up for this section?" He's like, "Yeah, absolutely." And it
Okay.
was just as simple as that. And
Yeah.
we just kind of stuck together through that section, kind of help each other out, and yeah, push through it. Because yeah, especially those night sections, just help to keep your mind off of it and
Yeah.
just distract yourself and just kind of grind it out. But yeah, I mean, a race that long, it's people aren't being super like competitive. Maybe if you're at the very front, you're obviously you got pacers at the front, so maybe you
Mhm.
don't. But no one's out here like get away from me. I mean, you got like 50 hours left. It's like it'd be just miserable if you're just out there like everyone who comes up to you, you're just like headphones on and you're just grinding it out. Like yeah, it's real. The camaraderie is great. Which I mean, it's across the board in ultras. I feel like.
Oh yeah. Did you take anything from Tahoe into Cocodona? Like, did you do anything in Cocodona that you're like, all right, I did that right. I'm going to make sure I do that again, or I screwed that up totally. I'm going to make sure in Cocodona I don't screw that up again.
Yeah, I mean, I did some stuff with like I got a new pack. I used like a different bottle system. Like I got like the long stemmed bottle, like soft flasks.
Those little,
It's like
I don't know
yeah,
how people. That looks like it would drive. That doesn't smack you in the face.
no, no, you can like tie it down. I don't know. So I got that. I got some new gels. So I had some things like gear, nutrition.
Okay.
Um, Other than that, I mean, footwear. So like I brought a couple new shoes. Like once at Tahoe, it was the first time wearing these like Topo shoes
Mm-hmm.
and I like ran them back for Cocodona. But
Which
other than
Topo?
that, I mean,
I wear the Ultra Ventures. Which one were you in?
I don't. It's like the green ones that are like low cut. I don't
Yeah.
really wear them anymore.
Okay.
It's like Topo Athletic, just
Yeah.
like low cut. They had a wide toe box, which is why I like
Yep.
them. But yeah, but I mean, other than that, most of the stuff was just training related. So just figuring out like what I did or like vert and Tahoe. I was like, oh, that worked, that didn't. Maybe let me try to incorporate this. Just general mileage, general just training.
Yeah.
But yeah, you definitely take a lot away.
Yeah. Now now later the year, you did Bigfoot 200,
Yeah.
and your times were similar. So did you fly through Cocodona or did you get rocked at Bigfoot?
Bigfoot. I think Bigfoot was way harder than Cocodona. That's just me. I didn't do too. I got kind of. I mean, something with my nutrition was off. Whatever. There's always a bunch of excuses, but I thought Bigfoot was harder than Cocodona for me. Just the climbing. It was so remote, and they also didn't have like section descriptions, which is like a really minor thing for Bigfoot. But the fact it was so remote was just kind of like it kind of was like weird. Like you wouldn't see any other because it's all private permit trails.
Okay.
So you wouldn't at least like at Cocodona, you get into the towns, you see some people, some cars, like there's other people just running in like Flagstaff and other areas. So just kind of made it seem a little more lively. Like it kind of broke it up a little bit. But Bigfoot, man, it's just you out there. So that was tough. I mean, the climbing beat me up. Like I wasn't doing my nutrition right. So yeah, a lot of
I,
things combined. I mean, I finished, but it was tough.
I'm
It
going to
was
I'm
tough.
pacing a friend out there this year for it. So
Oh no way.
yeah.
Yeah,
So we both listen to you have a podcast as well while
yeah,
they're sleeping, and we listen
yeah.
to your episode. And one thing you said about Bigfoot that I wanted to ask you about, and back to like courses and things like that. You said you didn't love the course at that time when you filmed that podcast. You said you
Yeah, I
didn't
didn't
love
love
the
it.
course because you felt like they were just making you climb for the sake of climbing. And like I looked at the map after you said that, and it kind of looks like, yeah, there's a straight shot through, and then they just shot you off on little up out and backs
Yeah.
just for the sake of climbing. And
Yeah. There's a lot of that.
yeah,
Like, oh yeah, let's just climb up to this mountain and then you just rip it straight back down. Which I get it. Like you got to get the vert in, but
it's like busy
it's
work in
brutal.
school. Like they're just making me do this. It's hard to because you're not going anywhere. You're just like, oh okay.
Yeah.
Oh, they just want me to get another 3,000 feet. Awesome.
And, I mean, it's really not. I mean, you just like you're 150 miles and you're like, really, like this is really what we're doing right now. But you just take a step back. It's like you get it. It
Yeah.
like makes sense. But yeah, in the moment, you're like, dang, this is rough.
Are you? Would you go back and do that one again?
I think I need to get back and just for some redemption and do it again. I would
Yeah.
probably do some other races first. Like I probably would go back to Tahoe before,
Okay.
or I'll see how Moab goes. Maybe people have so much great things to say about Moab, and I like the fact that it's one big loop in
Yeah.
Moab.
Yeah.
Because that
So
Bigfoot, you also like take a bus from the finish, or you take a bus to the start. It's like a couple hours, so there's like that logistic thing. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited, but yeah, I would do it again for sure. I
okay.
would.
And so then so you did that, and then kind of laid low for a little bit, and you did a lot of local races, and I think that's you kind of this would kind of be my style too. You raced a lot of local Northeast shorter races, I guess, for like what probably to break it up to go fast every once in a while and also hang out with the community. And I know that you do a lot of the Squatch app that come to the squash, whatever.
Sasquatch,
Yeah,
Sasquad.
yeah, Sasquad. They do great races. We actually
Yeah.
raced in an event together that when I did the 20 and you did the 50 because I was going to sign up for the 50, but I saw your name on the list, and as I mentioned earlier, I don't race with Chad anymore. So is that part of the strategy of just like enjoying the shorter races as a part of training and also like letting it fly a little bit?
Yeah, I mean it helps for the long runs on the weekend. Like I
Mm-hmm.
say in Manhattan, I mean it's you run around Manhattan, you do like you can do 30-mile training runs, 35-mile training runs. But like you want to get on the trails, and sometimes you hit the same trails over and over. It's nice to just kind of break it up with a long run that's like a race or something where you feel
Yeah.
like a little more sense of urgency. You can try some stuff out. So yeah, like there's a lot of great races. I did like some New Jersey Trail Series race. I did a 6-hour race there, and yeah, like Sasquatch. So yeah, it's really just a way to break up the training and train a little more specific and with a little more sense of urgency.
And with all those races that you did, you jumped right back into Cocodona this year. When did you decide? How long did it take after completing it in May of last year? Did you say, "I'm going back and I'm doing that again"?
Oh, immediately after.
Immediately,
Immediately after, I think I
is
signed up.
because
Maybe
it was that good, or you like you wanted redemption
no,
there, or what was the
yeah.
reasoning for immediate?
I just wanted a redemption. I mean, in my time, it says 105 hours, but I don't know why it's really like 109 was my time, like
So
109
you PR'd
hours.
this year.
So yeah, I beat my time from
Okay.
last year, but because like last year I fell in the or 2 years like I fell in the lake. I like had a real tough first 30K, like so I had a rough go. So
Okay.
I was like, okay, I could see the benefits of someone who had done it before, like Andy, just seeing how he knew the course layout, what to expect. So I was like excited to take that experience again and then combine with just like the training. So I knew I was going to have it. Well, I thought I was going to have a better race. And yeah, so I knew I wanted to go back.
Um. So when Andy found you sleeping on the side of the trail, were you
I was not
were
sleep.
you supposed to be sleeping that early? Because I feel like in your prep on your podcast, you and your co-host were talking about sleep, and you didn't say anything about sleeping on day one like that.
So, I mean, I was not actually sleeping. I was actually throwing up. It's kind of, this is I guess this is a inside scoop, but
Okay,
it may
yeah,
look like I'm sleeping, but I'm actually vomiting
okay.
because I didn't have enough like electrolytes and liquid, so I was just in a bad spot. So it looked like Andy kind of ran by, but he came back and he actually helped fill up some of my bottles. Then we like joined up to the next section. So That's what I was doing. I wasn't asleep. I was literally like,
You look sleepy.
I was like, maybe I was dead, but yeah, I was like blowing chunks to the side. But I
You
mean, we rallied back and made
you
it to the
you look
next aid
like
station.
me on the bathroom floor when I used to be a heavy drinker. That's what you look like.
Oh man, yeah, that was. I was
And it
like,
just
oh,
made
here we
it
go
made
again.
it it made it funnier too because as you mentioned in your podcast, there's not a lot of black guys doing this sport, and
No,
like just to see a big black guy laying on the side of the
oh yeah,
trail.
everyone knew it was me right away. I mean, there's no hiding it. And then people were sending me the TikTok. They're like, Chad, is that you? I'm like,
Yeah,
who
that's
else?
me.
Yeah.
Um, well, did it get better from like we mentioned before?
Yeah,
It gets you can go through a lot of highs and a lot of lows in a couple days. When did it start feeling better?
it got better almost like right away. Definitely by the next aid station.
Oh, okay,
Because
good.
yeah, I mean, I made it to that first, and the other cool thing about doing a race twice is, I was hitting these checkpoints just way earlier in the day. Like, oh, I was at this aid station in the middle of the night. Oh, I'm here. It's like broad daylight. So there's a lot of that. So you get a lot of
Awesome.
more energy. You're like, oh, great. Like I'm way ahead of schedule or way ahead of where I was last year. So as I moved along, that kind of gave me energy as well. And yeah, I started feeling better like pretty much right after. I slept at like mile 80. I actually got some sleep, about an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay.
I sleep on a cot, and then yeah, I picked up, was rallying to the next aid station, but cut to the chase. I mean, the sleep it catches up to you. Like you catch some trail naps, you sleep 5-10 minutes. I did a lot of that. Did a lot of like I probably slept 30 times, maybe 20 times in like 5-minute increments
What
on
do
the
you? I
trail.
gotta ask you. I gotta pause you there. Like, I hear
Yeah.
about like quote trail naps and stuff. Are you just
Uh-huh.
setting a alarm on your phone? Like, because I
Yeah.
feel like I would if I was that done. Like, there was times in canyons where I wanted to lay down, and I'm like thinking to myself, man, if this was like a longer race and I was even more tired than I am now, like when these guys get truly delirious, I would feel like I would just sleep right through my alarm.
Yeah. So you do set an alarm, just rip the phone out, 5 minutes, boom, and I'm out. I mean, I'm out in 20 seconds.
So
And
turn
I'm
it off,
waking
turn it
up in
back
three
on.
minutes. I'm waking up in 3 minutes, like, what time is it? And I see I have like 2 minutes left. I'm like going back to sleep. So that works because you kind of get a little like when you hear the alarm, you kind of like panic a little bit. You're like, oh man, like I got to get going. So I did
And
that, and yeah,
when you see other people taking trail naps, like I feel like my first inclination would be to be like, "Hey man, are you all right?" But like when does it go from I should ask this dude if he's all right to he's just taking a little 5 minute trail nap?
no,
Is it
yeah. I mean,
carnage? Do you see people out there a lot?
you do, and it's actually in the race, kind of like the runner's guide to specifically not like disturb people who are like laying on the side of the trail for that reason. Because you're sleepy, you got 5 minutes. You don't have time to like someone poking you, asking you if you're all right. But there are times when people like will make it known that they're in a rough spot, or like you
Okay.
can kind of tell when someone's like not in a good spot. Like when I was on the side of the trail, like you can kind of tell when someone's like, "Well, this guy doesn't look like he's sleeping."
No,
But
yeah.
for the majority of the time, and people are just laid back, like you're just like, do not disturb it. Sometimes they're in weird, funky angles. They're like, because they got their pack on. They're like, is this guy asleep? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, do you take
But
your pack off or it's not even worth the effort? Because I know like I when I did the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim, I was getting in a bad spot at the end and I was getting cold and I had a jacket in my pack. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't even want to take my pack off to go. Like, I really had to think about how much colder do I want to get before the effort is worth it to take my pack off. And sure enough, like I came around this ledge and like I got hit with like a big gust. I'm like, now's the time. I got that pack off.
yeah, I mean, there was one longer sleep I took at the top of this big climb. Like it was middle of the night. It was freezing, and I was just like, I can't even think. So I took my pack off. I got my bivy out, and I just got in my bivy, and I think I slept for like 30, 45 minutes. That was a crazy sleep. I was like hallucinating in that bivy. I was like, but then you snap out of it. I was like, let's go.
Are you so tired that you don't even care about like animals or laying in an ant
Oh
pile
no.
or like
I could have been sleeping with a rattlesnake. I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have even known. It was you're so tired. I do a little cursory look for snakes, but then
Yeah.
then I'm out. Then I'm just down and I'm just bundling
Are
up.
Are you going back to Cocodona?
I'm not because I'm doing the 300,
Oh yeah,
which
we'll talk.
is in
We'll talk about.
April.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. I want.
So the timing doesn't work.
Yeah, I we can jump ahead to that and then we'll come back to Moab. And I wanted that. It aligned. My spring break is mid-April. The reason I chose canyons, everyone's like, "Oh, do you want to go to UTMB? Like, what are you doing?" And I'm like, literally there's two reasons why I signed up for canyons. One, I thought there's a pretty good chance Andy Glaze would be there, and I wanted to race with that dude. And two, it worked out that it was right in the middle of my spring break. So I was able to fly out early. I was able to stay a couple of days more. My kids were out of school, so I could send them to my in-laws. Like it logistically just worked out for me. I didn't
Yeah.
care about UTMB. I didn't care about the stones. I mean, I got them and I'm going to put in for the lottery, but like that was like really the only reason. And when I saw Candace start talking about this 300, she said early April at first. And I'm like, man, if this thing pops up, I might have to take a shot at it. Now, in hindsight, I'm not going to lie. When she announced it as the first week, I was like, oh, shucks. Can't, oh, damn it. But now that it's, and back to me mentioning that Glaze is doing it, I find myself more wanting to do races because of the community and the people that are going to be there. Like I'm doing I'm doing Javelina, but I know now like six people that are doing saddles like 2 weeks before that in Prescott. And I'm like, son of a bitch, I kind of want to change from Javelina to go race with all those other people. But I mean, there's a pretty good chance I'm going to be there. My good buddy Taylor is doing that race, and
Oh, Taylor
um,
Spike?
yeah, and
Yeah,
there's a
legend.
good chance that he's also like an anti-crew kind of guy. I'm going out to Crazy Mountains with him this year in July,
Oh,
and I'm going to crew him, and I'm like, you need a pacer, and he's like, with all due respect, bud,
oh wow.
you're not there. You're not there yet, but. But no, and he's like, all jokes aside, I mean, I don't see myself needing help getting through the mountains like that. And that's just the way he is. But I think for crew, I'll probably end up being there. But I mean, are you going to train for that just like you train for Cocodona? Does the 50 miles at that point even matter?
I mean, not really. I'm gonna train for just like I train for Cocodona. It actually the profile, just quickly looking at it, it doesn't look that crazy. I mean, the vert is actually pretty. When you spread it out over 300, it's like pretty tame. Like I
For
think it's
yeah,
not even 30.
on a
Yeah, I
feet per
think it's
mile
35.
standpoint.
Yeah,
Yeah.
35,000 feet. I think so. I don't
Yeah.
even think it's that intense. So it's more just like getting time on the feet,
Yeah.
getting the miles under the belt.
Lot of trips up to Connecticut.
Exactly.
Are you how much downtime you taking after Cocodona? You have Moab in October. You're gonna mess around a little this summer. I'm gonna lap you this year at the 60K.
I'm counting on it.
How much time you take off? Are you going by field? Do you have does your coach say like, no, you're not allowed to run for X amount of time, or is it something you're just discussing on a weekly, daily basis? And how much of that time off is just emotional? Like I just need to step away from run. I know it's a huge hobby of yours, and obviously we love it if we're
Yeah.
doing it so much. Is it easy to take a rest and take some time off?
No, I mean it's tough. Like I obviously took the first week after. Like I don't run just because like I mean I couldn't run. My feet were pretty swollen. But the second week, I ran for the first time. Maybe it was 8, 9, 10 days after. Just like something real short. I think like 2, 3 miles. And it's great once you start getting back into the routine. That's most of the reason why I do this. Like I love the training part of it. I love just like the grind of the run this every day and just putting the miles in and when it's easy, when it's tough, just that's why I like it. So being away from that for too long is I kind of get a little fidgety. So I try not to take that long, but at least a week. Then I'm talking to my
Okay.
coach, like nothing really structured yet. And then we'll probably start structuring some stuff this coming week and the weeks after that.
Do you take anything away from Cocodona into Moab, or are they all just their own individual like plans?
No, definitely. Like we're gonna do more focus on like long overnight, like through hikes, kind of.
Okay.
Um, because like you can do good training sessions in the city, like big back to back runs, but not at a pace that's really like realistic for
Right.
a race like that. So just focusing more on like fast pack, like trail jogging type speed
Okay.
for like long durations.
Yeah.
So trying to focus more on that, at least for a couple of the larger, you know, larger weeks. So
Yeah.
that's probably one wrinkle or throw in, as opposed to just like getting more miles, period, but like more hiking type of work.
My buddy that I mentioned is doing Bigfoot. He raced canyons with me with a stress fracture in his ankle, and I just beat him.
Oh, come
Has a
on.
couple of
Oof.
hundreds under his belt. He's a former combat sniper. He
Oh
tell you
man.
that. Tell you this. He's also doing Moab. He's down on the Jersey Shore. I'm going to link you
Oh,
guys
right
up.
on. Oh, there we go. Yeah.
He does. He runs Tammany a lot. He's in South Mountain a lot. We did that squash apple together. He's
Yeah.
a really fit and just down to earth guy. So I mean, even once in a
Yeah.
while,
Nice.
he works now as a veteran social worker from home. So he's pretty flexible schedule too. So
Nice.
I'll definitely link you guys up as you start to build for Moab. And he's like it keeps it simple. He showed up to canyons, no crew, no pacers, a couple drop bags.
There you
He
go.
kind of just like doesn't really have a plan. He kind of just builds miles, builds time, builds volume, and I guess the old army in him. He's like, I just work hard, man. I just grind. He won the backyard ultra that was here on the island in December that we did
All
together.
right. Right
So
on. Yeah.
he'll be a good resource. You guys could definitely
Yeah.
bounce some ideas off each other. And I mean, out of all of the 200s, I feel like that's the one that's the most appealing to me. I mean, I love Utah. I'm going out there to run a 50 miler in 2 weeks. And I love that terrain. And I, I think one day, I think that's probably going to be the first one I give a go at because also too, it's also in the beginning of my school year. So there's not much going on in the beginning of the year. And I can kind of say to my principal and to my superintendent, like, I need 5 days at least. Just give them to me, please. And I'll make sure that I don't take another sick day for the rest of the year, And but then I'm like, it's not 5 days, man. It's 10
Yeah.
because you're traveling and you're banged
Yeah.
up. I'm not going back and like jumping around and being myself at work like I want to. And then I'm just like, all right, well, hopefully they'll be around when I'm 50, when I retire in 8 years, and I can just that's the one good thing about being old. I'm like a little bit closer to retirement than all the 20 somethings. So like, all these
Yeah.
20 somethings I like have to take time off and things like that. I'm like, all right, well, hopefully I can do this for 8 more years and then I'll retire and I'll be good to go.
Yeah. I mean, the PTO. I mean, yeah. I took 9 days off from work for
You're
Cocodona,
getting
and yeah, I mean, it's tough. You can't just like it's a priority. You can't just disappear. But
yeah.
you got
I mean,
PTO
you're
days to
giving some
use. Yeah.
notice. You're giving some
Yeah.
notice.
Yeah. Yeah. They let them know. Yeah. Can't be reached.
Literally can't be reached. I am in the middle of nowhere. So you got the 300s, the two. I feel like you've checked all the boxes, and I mean, do you find a place where, or maybe you're there now, where you're like, I don't know how I'm going to continue to like keep pushing the envelope. I mean, like we do half marathons, we got a marathon to go to, and then we got 50Ks, and then we got 50 milers, and then we got 100 milers, and we got 200. Now we have 300 milers. You're going to check all of those boxes. So like, what's next, or like, what do you think is going to keep you pushing after you've completed all of the hardest races that the world literally has to offer right now?
I'm honestly just trying to improve, like on my
Okay.
times.
Yeah.
Like I'm just trying to. That's it for me. Like it's a fun journey because you can make huge improvements at these 200-mile
Okay.
distances, like year over year. Like people improve 10 hours year over year, just like it's nothing. So I know that. I mean, that's my focus. And it's a fun challenge to just try to just like beat my times, like have better races. Finish feeling fresher, just generally feeling fitter.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's what I'm focused on. And yeah, you kind of run out of new races to do, but old races, I mean, it's a new experience every time, honestly.
Do things like FKTs wind your clock? Because there's a
Not
couple of good ones
not
upstate.
really. Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot. There is. I mean, not really. That's not really something that I've just like had a huge itch for.
Right.
But yeah, maybe I'll dip my foot in that one of these days.
Oh man. I want to ask you just because I heard you bring it up on,
Yeah,
and we mentioned it briefly before about not a lot of black guys in the sport, and I
yeah.
was actually when you said that, I was thinking like, dude, besides Goggins, you're probably one of the most decorated black ultramarathoners in the whole world.
Oh man, there we go. Well, yeah. I mean, look. I mean, Goggins. He's probably the reason I got into ultras.
Yeah.
One because like he's just a badass. Like just seeing his just like reading about him and just seeing what he did, but also just because he's a black guy. It's like kind of cool to see like representation.
Yeah.
So that I mean that got me into it. But yeah, there's really not many. I mean, there was one other guy who started Cocodona. He didn't finish. He had a rough go at it, but I mean, I don't really know what it is. I mean, I kind of, I mean, yeah, you can guess reasons, like you could speculate, but it is, yeah. I mean, it's not something I focus on too much,
Yeah.
but it helps because people remember you. Like everyone remembers meeting me. It's like you leave a mark. It's like you pass by, you see people at the finish. Like I don't remember you, but hey, they remember me. So it's
Well,
I got that
lots
going
of
for me.
lots of white guys have laughed at me before, and I don't remember any of their names.
Well,
Yeah,
there we
man,
go.
and Goggins is pretty much retired. So I mean, you like I said, you might be the guy.
I'm always looking because they post all the
Yeah.
finishers, the start photos. I'm looking through there. I'm like, all right, this is the race. Like, oh, not this time, but the 125 miler had a couple because there's other distances at Cocodona.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, maybe one day, maybe one
Dude,
day. Be yeah.
one day you're going to be hearing about people that started doing it just because they saw you doing it.
There we go. There we go. That'll be a
Dude,
success.
thank you so much for your time. I know that you are a hard worker and you took some time off of work to get this done, so I won't keep you too long. I appreciate it, and I look forward to it. I think you signing up for it because I looked at that 60K the other day, and I said to my wife because she's the one she tracks like she'll look every day and see how many entrants are in the races and things like that. I don't really tend to care that much, so I asked her. I'm like, hey, last year because we signed up early last year, I was like, was there not a lot of people? And then like people were weather watching kind of to see. She's like, yeah, there was like 10 to 15. It probably doubled in the last 2 weeks. And I hadn't even seen really anybody. I think there was like one or two names from last year that were on the list already. And then when I was stalking you out for this, I'm like, son of a bitch signed up this week. I'm like, here we go.
Popped it in. I was like, let's get it.
So I was going to do like a sprint try here on the island, but now, and I was talking with my wife about that. That's how it came up. And I was like, I'd rather kind of go trail race. And she's like, yeah, I don't need to do a 1 hour triathlon for $200 when we can go do for me, a 9 hour ultra. And I said to her,
$50 or whatever.
yeah, I said to her too, that I've only been doing this for a year and I want to repeat a race. So, I mean, I did last year, I did a 50K was my first one in April with the same company that does Tesla Hertz, the Shore to Shore, which you should do one day, which is dope.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
And I couldn't do it this year because it was the week before Canyons, and coach was like, no. And then he gave me a 30-mile run anyway. Because he's like, I said to him, like, why'd you give me a 30-mile run? He goes, you only know how to full send. So if I let you sign up for that race, you're going to hurt yourself. And then I did a backyard ultra upstate New York Father's Day weekend last year, and I got like 32 miles. And man, I was destroyed, but so happy. I was like, I can't believe and I was looking forward to getting back there. They had permit issues. I'm like, son of a bitch, there's another race that I wanted to do. So Red Wing was my third race, and that was the one. I mean, besides the rain, I don't even know if anything, the rain probably helped me because I hate the heat, and it was a little warmer earlier in the day.
Yeah, it was.
And the rain kind of made it nice and cool. And besides it, like, I'm not going fast enough where like the trail conditions really made me slow me down. I had my Tams on, and I was my Speedland Tams on. I was just going like having a grand old time. But I really feel like that would be my first opportunity. I think I would clip hours off my time.
Oh yeah,
So
because you were not. Oh yeah, you'd get 8 hours
yeah, I mean, I
for
really,
shivvies.
so I think there's a pretty good chance that I'll get up there and do that race with you, and I will definitely connect you with Jacob, and he'll train with you and he'll get out there, and he's going out and doing that 50 miler with me. Like I said, he's a cowboy. I told him, I said, hey man, I'm gonna go to Utah on a whim, and he's like, you flying out of JFK? I'm like, yeah, I'm flying out of JFK. He's like, send me the flight information, I'll ship it, and then there he is, he's coming with
Let's
me.
go. Yeah,
So
that's
he's that
great.
type of kid. It'll be good to go, man. And yeah, I look forward to watching you crush, and it's been good. It's been
Yeah,
good.
man.
It's been you're a great follow on Instagram, and I loved watching your football season. Big Detroit fan, that was fun.
Oh
And
baby, let's go Lions.
being a Bears fan, it was like I'm not huge into football, but for whatever reason, which is another time, another place, I became a Bears fan years ago. But yeah, man, I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, man.